Ms. Joan Pereira.
Mr. Speaker, sir, may I have your permission to answer PQs 18 and 19 on today's order paper together, as they pertain to inflation as well as support for households and businesses?
Please proceed.
Inflation in Singapore has eased in recent months. CPI all items inflation fell to 4.1% on a year-on-year basis in July from 6.6% in January. Similarly, MAS core inflation eased from 5.5% to 3.8% over the same period. For the rest of 2023, inflation should slow further as import costs are likely to remain lower relative to a year ago. For the full year, MTI expects CPI all items inflation to average 4.5% to 5.5%, while MAS core inflation is projected to be 3.5% to 4.5%. Nevertheless, upside risks remain, including from further shocks to the global economy and global commodity prices and supply chains. The government has taken a multi-pronged approach to help households and businesses cope with inflation. We have introduced measures to help lower and middle-income households manage the higher cost of living. For example, the assurance package in Budget 2023 provided a cost of living special payment of between $200 and $400 and additional CDC vouchers for eligible Singaporean households. The government is also helping businesses manage rising costs. For instance, we enhanced the enterprise financing scheme in Budget 2023 to reduce businesses' borrowing needs. To mitigate higher energy prices, government schemes such as the Energy Efficiency Grant and the Resource Efficiency Grant for emissions help businesses become more energy efficient. The MAS will continue to keep the Singapore dollar strong, which dampens imported inflation. Finally, to help consumers make informed purchasing decisions, the government has worked with the Consumers Association of Singapore CASE to onboard more retailers onto its Price Kaki app. Price Kaki, of course, promotes price transparency by providing easy and timely comparisons of grocery and hawker food prices. And we will continue to monitor trends in inflation and do even more to help Singaporeans, businesses and households if necessary.
Ms. Joan Pereira.
Thank you, Speaker. MOS, I have one SQ. Would the ministry consider efforts to encourage our consumers to switch to non-basmati white rice alternatives, some of which may even be healthier or more nutritious, in order to diversify away from our country's reliance on white rice imports? Thank you.
MOS Tan.
Thank the member for her question. Maybe just also to share a little bit of background on global rice prices. So, global rice prices, in fact, have risen in recent months because of India's ban on the exports of non-basmati white rice, and of course, adverse weather conditions. So, if you look at the Food and Agriculture Organization (FAO's) All Rice Price Index, it has increased by 31.2%. In August year on year. So that's the rice price. But if you look at the global price of most other food commodities, they have fallen. So the overall FAO food price index has actually dropped by 11.8% in August year on year. Giving you the bigger picture so that we can see how we can better address this. The government has also then strengthened food supply resilience, both by diversifying the food import sources as well as also encouraging local production. So in July 2023, when India banned the non-basmati white rice exports, we requested the Indian government for a waiver from the ban for our domestic food security requirements. The Indian government acceded, and our multiple import sources and also our rice stockpile scheme has also allowed us to mitigate the impact of these disruptions. I also encourage Singaporeans to widen their choice of food, including of rice, including different kinds of rice. I also encourage everyone to use your Price Kaki app by case to choose as well as to find out the price of rice between different retailers as well. So widen your scope. There are different sources of rice, and different prices of rice as well. Thank you.
Mr. Leong Eng Kwa.
Sir, we continue to see domestically driven cost pressure in addition to the external imported factors like higher energy prices, commodity prices. So I want to ask the MOS, this cumulative effect over the last 2-3 years, whether has the government studied how that has impacted the low to middle income and also the businesses, and what are the measures that we can help to mitigate some of these increases, the cumulative increases over the last 2-3 years. The other question is about the trends of the energy prices, the commodity prices. They are all elevated back again, and wanted to know what can MTI do to help moderate some of this cost pressure especially to the businesses.
MOS Tan.
Thank the member for his SQ with regards to the impact, particularly on households, lower income and middle income households. In fact, if you look at the January to June figures, the impact of inflation or inflation rates were lower for low-income households. The CPI all-in items inflation for the lowest 20 percentile and the middle 60% income groups came at 4.9% and 5.9% and 5.6% year-on-year respectively, compared to 5.9% year-on-year for the highest 20% income group. So it's less for the lower income group. Nonetheless, we're also aware that this same level of inflation can have a more adverse impact on lower income households. I think both Minister Tan See Leng as well as SMS Chee Hong Tat has already explained, as per in my reply, how we are particularly helping low income group through higher payouts, for example, in the assurance packages and the GST voucher schemes. And we also, as SMS Chee mentioned earlier, the government will look at ways to further help Singaporeans if necessary. With regards to the energy prices, global demand for oil is expected to moderate given the ongoing global economic slowdown and also China's slower than expected economic recovery. But despite coming off their peaks last year, global oil prices are expected to remain elevated in 2023 because of tightened supply constraints. But all in all, what the government is doing is also on the fiscal stance, but also on the monetary policy stance, is for the MAS to continue the current stance of appreciating Singapore dollar to dampen imported inflation. And in fact, the MAS will review this stance in the next monetary policy meeting in October. Thank you.